Hey, Arlene, thanks for taking your time out of your busy schedule. I know this has been, as we were talking about the other day, I think it's taken us almost months to be able to kind of get back together to do this interview and everything. So I see it's kind of cold where you're at today there in Portland. So that looks good.
Yeah,
How are
it's
you doing?
doing great. Great to be talking again.
Good, good. So here's what I'm going to do is I wanted to jump in and kind of talk about a little bit about your background and tell me about your specialty, what you do for a living, just kind of give me an idea like that. And then I want to know, we'll talk about basically your struggle and how you went kind of, kind of the Reader's Digest version so that people watching this kind of get an idea for who you are, not just, as a wonderful, strong lady, but what you are as a scientist. Okay, so kind of give us a little bit of that.
All right. Okay, so I'll get started. So I work full time as a social scientist at a high tech nanotechnology
Mhm.
company here in Portland. Prior to that, I have done my doctoral program in clinical psych
Mhm.
and a specialization in industrial psychology.
Okay.
I've always been very interested in the field of psychology. I thought, I was kind of like hesitating to go into that field because I don't really find myself as a kind of like a very talented therapist. But then I realized that that's the longing of my soul, so to speak, to get into not only the psyche and the science behind human behavior, but also to understand what drives people
Sure.
into what they want to do, their passion, and how they overcome some of their pains and challenges in life. And then having those kinds of background led me to the role that I'm in. I didn't realize that a lot of high tech companies nowadays would like to have social scientists to actually understand the challenges of our human society in general.
Right.
And then because of the brilliant engineers have all these engineering minds, and they have all the technology at their disposal, we help them to understand how the technology could help a human pain point. Because
Wow.
no matter what it is, whether that's an ATM machine that has technology inside, we need to understand how people will be using the machine and how it could actually give them efficiency gains, or doctor trying to kind of make documentation, how could a tablet and what kinds of actions will they be doing, how this data goes into the cloud and how we
Right.
store data, and then the birth of the social media, of how, social connections could ignite, a business in eyeball or advertising.
Okay.
Privacy and ethics goes into AI,
Wow.
artificial intelligence, and then leading to personalized medicine, genomic sequencing. So you get the whole point
Oh
of
my
how
gosh. Right.
social sciences could look into that, right?
So I got to ask you a question. I mean, there's enough spokes off of you as a hub that we could do multiple interviews on because you have just a wealth of knowledge. And one of the things that I've understood from this is you have written how many what I would call white papers or scientific papers,
Yeah.
and so you've been doing that basically, I guess, even when you were, I guess, before you actually got your doctorate, that was part of you writing your theses. But this is what you do now as a living. So you're a writer, but you're a technical writer, yes?
Absolutely. And could be academic as well. And then obviously there is the whole point of you put stuff in the PowerPoint, right?
Hmm. Sure.
Because at the end of the day, you have to present that in the context of team meetings and influencing
Okay.
scientists. And there's always the business usage and technology.
Hmm.
So
Sure.
my point of my medium of communication has become Windows, Microsoft, PowerPoint, and things like
Sure.
that, Excel. And then to your point, white papers and contributing to and collaborating with fellow scientists
Sure.
on, publications and stuff like that.
So you've been a writer and for peer review and that inside of your academic and scientific community. So, a lot of the clients and authors that we work with, they've never written before. And maybe they've written a poem, or maybe they have admiration of some prose or something, or some of them have maybe scribbled an essay, something like that. But most of the time it's been way back high school or undergrad, and that was the last time they wrote something. So when we talk about, writing something and putting a book together, you kind of see that, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And that wasn't something that, was an obstacle for you, because you were like, oh, it's going to be a matter of sorting down what am I really going to talk about? So in doing that, first of all, why, when you are so busy and you're doing so many great things, so I love what you do as a scientist, because you keep focusing on pain points. So your expertise is figuring out how to make people have a better life. So your other words, you're a great egalitarian. You're making the world better, because you figure out how to take
Hopefully, yeah.
frustration out of it, right?
Exactly, right? So yeah, and in the context of a social technical setting,
Mm-hmm.
right? We revolved in, our generation were more kind of like laggards, but the millennials, they are born in cloud, right?
Sure.
They're like uh, the generation that gets it right
Mm-hmm.
away.
Right.
There's some sort of like they're early adopters and things like that.
Right.
But going back to, I know, a few months ago, last year when we spoke, and you had kind of like provided me information on the book. I
Right.
still, even though I have written quite a bit, I was concerned that it's not going to be that conversational, because the type of and style of writing will be different. And then you were convincing me that there will be experts who will help me
Sure.
along the way, and so that kind of eased my anxiety or
Sure.
my nervousness about the lack
Right.
of skills into that. But
Right.
I think, outside of my professional background and the kind of topics that I actually espouse and want to write on, as a way of my profession, there is that side of me, and maybe I could say more clinical, more kind of a storytelling piece that I'd like to impart to more of a broader audience, and not just people who are in the high tech want to innovate.
Sure.
And I think that somehow was inspiring for me to say, where are these inspiration coming from? Who am I, right? What has I become in terms of like my inspiration, my passion to the work that I do. And, if you really, go back to my roots, there are some of those inspirations that I never had the opportunity to tell.
Sure.
And to share to the people I want to influence. And I think that was somehow the inspiration when we met, that you have influenced me to kind of like, bring it out and
Full
kind of
circle.
in a different way. Yeah.
Right. So now I think when we were talking about this the other day, you have now um, grown up in an environment and then became educated, and the education that you have now as a professional, you can now go back and talk to people, which is really what you wanted this book for, is to become a conversational piece, to open the conversation. And I think you used the term really, really well the other day, is so that you can listen. So you're extremely educated, but if you, and this is what I see a lot of times when I see really super professionals, is they talk all the time because they know so much. But if you don't do what you talked about, which I thought is so awesome, is listen. If you listen to the people that you're interviewing, the people that you really have the skill sets to alleviate their pain or reduce it, but you don't know how to apply what piece of your awesome knowledge skill base that you have unless you find out and elicit from them that first conversation. And that's what you were saying, you're using this book is to open that conversation. How wonderful.
Yeah. And, I that was actually quite inspiring, because I've been influenced by my colleagues who are anthropologists. And there's such a methodology in qualitative research known to them. Not all psychologists are trained in doing ethnographic research. We are trained as people who have studied more into the psychological space and counseling and therapy and observation, and being a researcher too. It's more kind of like listening is obviously a skill that you learn and then you espouse and kind of like decipher and see, decode what's going on in the psyche, and then you can diagnose and things like that. But then, over time, the process of listening, the deceptively simple skill of listening, not only to the thoughts and cognitions of individuals and their emotions and things like that, but essentially what they do, how they interact with the words they use, somehow will give you, not in a psychoanalytical way, but then kind of like gives you more empathy.
Yes.
Right? You put yourself in their shoes. I'm an aging, an elderly wants to age in place, meaning at home. How could we support individuals who wants to take care of their chronic illnesses at home? So you somehow would just be flying the wall, kind of like follow along and get into the process of observation.
Right.
And that's really how you transform your end user pain points into some form of requirements that engineers can understand, because you could just imagine the difference between social science speak and engineering speak, that you have to kind of like, make them buy the idea, right? And obviously there is such a thing as requirements engineering that I have learned along the process.
Sure.
But going back to the book, somehow, what's intimidating by writing a book is that.
Can I show the book while you're doing this?
Oh yeah, please.
Okay, I'll show the book here.
I still kind of, people have asked me, are you shy that you have written a book, which is kind of like odd. Not really. I'm just kind of like still want to claim it. Yes. So that's the book.
That's the book there. And I was going to show a couple other things real quick here. So this is actually some of the things. This is the, let's see, why is this right in the middle of my screen? How about that there? Okay, so this is actually some of the stuff we created for you for your social media to announce the book and stuff like that, because you've been actually on, let's see, I actually have it right here. Well, that's actually, this is your press release. And then there was another piece that we wanted to show. You've actually now gone out to more than 300 different news and media outlets around the world.
Oh, this awesome. I didn't realize that.
That's a list of all of them. Yes, because this is every one of them. And so any one of these you can actually click on and see the article that they carried about you in your press release in the book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I mean, it just keeps going on and on. And then obviously this is the other thing here that's actually your website itself that we have that has all of this information on here, and gives you a little bio here, but then it also talks about the book. And I thought what was interesting right here is the way that you articulate this. It says success is free and has no price tag and is always with us. No one can give it to us. It is always in us. We are in control of our own success. And I just thought that was just really inspiring, the way that you wrote that. And you're talking about the book and how people, now that you've opened this up and this becomes your conversational piece and so tell me about that. Tell me how that's working, and what has been, maybe the other thing is, what has been the most unexpected response that you've got to date, as now that you are adding an author to the rest of your credentials that you already have.
Right. Yeah. So, going back to being, to have written quite a bit of, white papers and kind of have, collaborated with brilliant inventors in the space of innovation. The book is different in a way because it's a dynamic tool. I actually didn't realize that. I didn't realize, I thought it was just, because I have read quite a bit. I have a passion for collecting books as references.
Sure.
And I put it away after I read it. I put it away and never really kind of like realize, now we're talking about empathy, of how the author would feel if you are in front of that author, and then the author and you are interacting as to why they have written the book.
Right.
Especially if it has some sort of like a personal kind of like meaning to that book. I love the fact that we have an anthology. There are other 17 authors or 16 authors in the book, and I love telling their stories.
All right.
Because it's not necessarily my story. I don't want to have to be, I think what's telling you about that is that I'm still kind of, I don't want to go and approach someone and say, hey, I have written a book. Have you bought it? But that's not necessarily the reason for that. It's more about sharing, the book is an anthology. It's a collection of many stories of struggle and triumphs and how the people have overcome their challenges
Setbacks.
in life.
Sure.
And then I could speak to mine, which is there are three important topics. There's attachment. I realized that, as a Filipino, culturally, we have attachment that could be maybe a little bit not happier in a sense, but it could be what you call this supplemented by the love of your extended family. So
Okay.
there's attachment styles there, and there is behavioral change, which I'm very passionate about. Stages. People would like to change, but don't know how to change
Hmm.
because there's stages of changes there
Sure.
as well. There's a little bit more scientific truth to that, and there is the brain mind body connection.
Hmm.
Those are the topics that I love, kind of researching outside of my work. And as a matter of fact, sometimes I use that to influence
Hmm.
innovation, especially in the healthcare and life sciences. But the book kind of tells you a lot about, I love that it's an anthology, the format is great.
Hmm.
Well, when I approach someone, I listen and I use the book to just break the ice, right?
Hmm.
And then
Sure.
tell them, because sometimes, you realize, it's another book. People with the advent or the era of ebooks, people have no longer have kind of okay, it's another book. And people realize read to their attention span is short
Sure.
as we realize people will just read a Facebook post and without pictures, it's not going to have the more likes that you wanted, right?
Right.
So, and the book has no pictures, purely kind of like stories.
Sure.
And so I explained that, and people listen and they ask me about, why did I write a book? And I
Hmm.
said, I wrote the book because I like to, get people's stories and see how it's connected to my story.
Ah,
And
good.
you
Uh-huh.
only could get that kind of interaction when you use your book to communicate and connect. So
Right.
I've used it, in the last 3 to 4 months to connect.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily ask them to buy the book,
Right.
but then I invite them to my events.
Hmm.
We've done peer team events. I have done some sort of like a book preview. I've
Sure.
invited, I was telling, invited, friends and family. And then I kind of like read the book in front of it because I know they may not be reading the book, right?
Right. Right.
So it has become a social gathering. It has
Right.
become a tool to dynamically tell the story, and then also for me to listen to what's common, between me and that person or a group of women talking is that they also have the same stories, and I always
Sure.
encourage them to tell their story.
Hmm.
And everybody could be an author, right? Everybody has the I think it's a good opportunity if you could
Right.
tell the story in that format.
Yeah, because I think everybody in Joseph Campbell, I think he coined the hero's journey, and everyone has the hero's journey.
Yes.
I think a lot of times they are unaware or don't carry the personal esteem, self-esteem that they should have, because what's good about this particular environment, there's 16, 17 stories, you're the lead author, and each person is relaying, like you said, that story of struggle and then triumph. And in today in our world, it seems that there's a lot of negativity. In fact, the news channels themselves would not survive if they had to tell something good. There's always
Yeah.
something bad to tell. That's what everybody
Right.
focuses on. So we all live in this very negative, almost a downward spiraling world. And so when you have a book like this and you hear about people from 16, 17 different perspectives and how each one of them met fate, struggled, maybe fell down a couple times, maybe did some, awesome face planting, I call it, where you just totally wiped out. But then how each one individual in their own way found the deep inspiration and where they found it from and how they reached deep in the well of their soul and then figured out how to get back up,
Right.
and whether that was something that was spiritual religious or whether it was something that I had to get back up because I have children that are sitting here depending on me, or I have a spouse that relies upon me, or there's a partnership relationship. But you find all of these awesome stories, and everybody relates to a different one of them.
Correct.
And then finds that inspiration that says, oh, wow, I thought I was really having a bad thing. And then I read this person's story and I go, oh, my situation isn't that bad. Or, okay, maybe it's equally as bad, but now I've got someone else that I feel I can relate to. And there's that movement forward again. And if you can just keep that forward momentum, I call it leaning into the fray. A lot of times you can get through the hurricane or through the fog and you find out that there is some sunshine out there,
Yeah.
but you can't find that if you stand still
Yeah.
and play poor me. The pity play
Correct.
doesn't work. So you have become this awesome, not just motivation, you've become an inspiration that
Right.
can continue.
Right.
And this becomes a legacy for you now, because your book now is, I guess you would call it, it continues to live and to be on someone's bookshelf, to be passed from family member to family member, person to person. Someone sees someone else struggling and they're like, oh, this book really helped me. I can pass it along, and they're doing the pay it forward thing. And you're part of that now. So how does that make you feel?
It feels exciting, right?
Right.
I just said, it's not that I have not written, an article or something like
Sure.
that, but
Right.
this gives you some sort of like, I would always say it's a bucket list of my checked.
Right. Right. Right.
And then due to your point, I would say this is a book that I could always bring with me and give
Right.
someone, because again, it's not just my story as the lead author, but also the stories of these people.
Sure.
It's very conversational. It's easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get nuggets of information there that, it's spoken in a language of simplicity.
Sure.
And you could just see how it came from someone's personal
Yep.
story.
Right.
And I think that makes it so powerful,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And for me, I'll carry, to be honest, because I travel a lot, I'll have 5 of these at the airport.
Right.
I've met quite interesting people. It's funny because it's a connection tool too. And now
Wow.
I'm connected to these people that I've never known, just because I actually have given them a book. I
Right.
signed it, and then we became friends on Facebook. That's how we get connected. And now
Right.
we're friends, right?
Right.
So it's more than I actually have imagined and
Sure.
expected, right? It's not the monetary return investment that
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for. That was never the intention. The
Right.
intention is really for me to have a way of conversationally telling someone that there is a book out there that is so simple.
Yes.
And your story could be in that format as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have that, if I could do it, you could too. And they're always going to say, oh, yeah, just because of a doctor. No, not really. If you look at all those stories,
Sure. They're from every walk
you
of life.
could relate into those stories,
Sure.
right? Forget about, the initials after my name that has nothing to do
Right.
with, why I am the lead author in that book,
Correct.
right? So it's an amazing thing. I have read my book to my children with a very limited attention span,
Right.
and then and then my daughter will say, "Oh, could you read the other stories?"
But that's really great. So now, I mean, we always talk about leaving a legacy.
Yeah,
And we try to do that in different ways, whether we, contribute to maybe our alma mater, or, we do other great organizations, nonprofits that we want to see perpetuated because they're doing something humanitarian, egalitarian, maybe even ecclesiastical. But in your situation here, this is you leaving a legacy to your children. And how did they respond when all of a sudden they go, oh, we're going to read mom's book?
yeah. Well, it's a mixed thing because you always have low credibility with your children. They always say that, right? They never believe what I do
Right.
professionally, because for them, I'm just the mom who washes dishes and
Sure.
takes them to fencing and then classes and then, washes clothes, right?
Right. Right. Sure.
Um, I think this actually makes it real for them. When I
Mm.
did the book launch
Mm-hmm.
party,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like spend a little bit more good format there.
Right.
and see how, and they were there when people came to see, and I've done
Sure.
it twice. They could not believe it, and I could see that they are. I want to leave some sort of like an example to
Wow.
them. That this is something that they could do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when you model some sort of like a growth mindset to your children, and that is not measurable by financial success,
Mm-hmm.
but by by kind of focusing on and not forgetting where you came from. That's a big Filipino culture and golden rule. When
Sure.
you know to thank people, and then kind of the other legacy one is actually because I mentioned about my aunts and uncles and uncles there and
Sure.
my family in the first few pages of the book. I want to kind of honor them. I want to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like tell them the story because then when you revisit your past, you kind of like it propels you to your present and your future. And I want that uh, to be an inspiration to my children.
Sure.
That the knowledge that you have and the experiences in life is something that you could tell
Mm-hmm.
and that could make you uh, that you could give an inspiration to other people.
Right.
There was one incident at the airport where I have four, it's just a small book. I love that also
Mm-hmm.
that I have in my bag. And I was chatting, and there was a woman there, and I love conversational. And then it now added a different layer that I
Mm-hmm.
actually give the book to the woman, and then I sign it. And then the woman actually had asked that we take a picture together. And then I think my children were surprised that someone wants to take a picture with.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Isn't that
I think, and I kind of like enjoying the moment like that. It's not because of my small narcissistic trait there, but I think when you inspire people because of that, and
yes?
we had the same flight, and the woman actually finished the book all throughout the flight, and told me that was interesting, and
That's awesome.
then she's now a very good friend of mine.
That's awesome. So you have made this a connection tool. We talk about that in a lot of individuals that are authors in this book and in the prior books or whatever. A lot of are what I would call pure networking business people that need to be able to connect to other people. And I've never met in all of my interviews that I have for candidates that we look at partnering into the book, have I ever had anybody go, you know what, by becoming an author, this would not give me any credibility or give me the opportunity to open relationships. That's just absolutely not true. It's the other way around. It's exactly
Right.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Not only does it give you that credibility and create that bond and that tie,
Yeah.
but it gives you, like you said, it's a connection tool. It's an
It's a connection.
ability, yes, to do that at a different level. And like you said, then I have talked with many of the other authors when I'm doing an interview like this, and they're like, I not only has it been friends and family, or close family, like you said, you're watching your children looking at you, going, "Wow, they're taking a picture with mom. Wow, this is really cool." And this was a stranger just 15 minutes, a half hour ago, and now she's like, "Let me memorialize this because I want this picture taken so I can remember it." That's a
Yeah.
whole different level of connection than just going, "Oh, I sat with this person, in the airport. We didn't get their name. I didn't have anything deep conversation other than, oh, the flight's running late
Yeah.
again." Blah
Yeah.
blah blah. You made a different, and like you said, you're totally connected on social media now. Wow. And so now, you are able to do that other level that you aspired to, that drove you to become a scientist,
Right.
which,
Yeah.
how do I connect with people so I can understand what their pain is? So then if I understand it, I can better solve it.
Exactly. And it gives you that, I think it will be a lifelong connection because it's hard to forget you've met an author that gave you a signed book and now you're
Mhm.
connected with that. And, and
Right.
the story that they could pick different stories and that resonated with them in the chapters.
Sure.
So it's not just all about me. And I truly believe that, some of most of the stories that we have there have connected to many other people that I've
Right.
met, and not necessarily my story.
Right.
But it was great to have that level of you know, the storytelling piece to it is
Yes.
amazing. I never thought that a book can do that, just because the way that's my biases, right?
Hmm.
Because I
Right.
have my own biases, and I never thought that if I have just stopped there and say, oh, okay, who's gonna read this? Who's gonna, you know, what will I do with it? Only because that's the world I live in. That is my own limiting beliefs.
Sure.
But now, you know, I have again 4 or 5 copies in my car.
Right.
You know, and purposely won't sign it because I wanted to have a fresh ink to it. And
Exactly.
I think it makes it special when you are
Yes.
signing it with a person you are, you know, you just met or have met. So
Absolutely.
it has
Personalized.
become a personal a journey for me. I think it becomes more special than all the research work that I've done.
Oh, well, this is really awesome to hear. Because here's what's going to happen now. You when other people see this video, okay, then they're going to be sitting here going, "Would you please tell me where I can get a copy of the book, or please tell me where I can at least read or take a peek into the book and see the chapter or whatever." So, your website is. Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, so it's a Success Unlimited by
Okay.
Arlene Binoya-Strugar.
Okay.
It's like a
Okay.
long kind of a
Okay.
name there.
Well, I think what we'll actually do is we'll put the actual domain, the URL, we'll put it on the actual video here, so that way someone can actually see it, and then we'll put it actually in the description as well, so then it's easy for them to click on. But that will then take them there, and like we showed a minute ago, to give them a good dynamic review of who you are. There's some great testimonies on there of peers that have known you for a long time. There's a way for people to contact you, obviously, if they wanted to do that for some reason, whether it was to speak, or to, maybe someone wanting to add to your research or offer insights or connect with you. And there's also the little button there where they can actually get the free download, and it gives them like a peek into the book, and that way they can get a good perspective on the storytelling that you've done so well. So,
Correct. Yes.
I'd love to do this as well. You thank you for your time, first of all, but
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for your time.
this is awesome, and this is why I do this, because I love to meet extraordinary people like you that are doing such extraordinary things in the world, and we get a little bit of benefit in helping you do what your dreams are a little bit better, right? And changing, in my opinion, is if you change one person's life, then that is what matters. If we all had that idea, if you could just change one person's life and better that. So I'd like to also be able to come back in several more months and kind of do a follow-up review and see how things are still going and see how things are doing. And,
Oh, absolutely. And we're
okay,
connected via email. I know you
sure.
have been always generous, sending like, you know, uh, very nice articles and,
Hmm.
you
Sure.
know, and transcripts of how we could grow more. So I really
Absolutely.
appreciate that effort on your part.
We'll continue to do that. And I also want to say, I want you continued success in your fencing. We had a good conversation about that the other day. So I love all of that. So awesome. You're not only, it sounds like a great mom, a great athlete, because I know you've done a lot of athletics over your life. So I appreciate getting to know you, and I'm so happy that you're part of our team, and
Same here,
look forward to it.
Steve. You've
So
been a great support and you know, a cheerleader for us.
absolutely. So we'll talk with you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.